my good friend, Your Eminence, and my family does consider you a good friend. I don't know quite what to say. How do I want it? The loves of my life, my two granddaughters, my two oldest granddaughters, to be with me tonight so they could see what real courage was, to see you, honey. I'd like to introduce you to the loves of my life, the two persons I know always love me. My oldest granddaughter, named after my deceased daughter, Naomi, and my number 2 granddaughter and my 18-year-old special weapon, Finnegan Biden. Would you guys stand up and have love for you? Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be with family. Presumptuous sounding thing for me to say, but an awful lot of you in this audience have been my family. Back in Delaware, in the United States Senate with Paul Sarbanes, there's no man I've admired more than serving with Paul, and he deserves a round of applause. Everyone regretted when Paul left, and they said, "Oh my God, without Paul controlling Joe, what the hell will happen?" But the Manitoses have been so good to me, and Jim, you've become such a good friend. My dad had an expression. He said, "Do me a favor, and I'll appreciate it. Do a favor for my son or my daughter, and I will never, ever, ever forget it." And so many of you did favors for my sons and my daughter. Jill is not here tonight because she's campaigning for Hillary. Happy I'm not running. Oh, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And my daughter and Ashley, her husband, are in New York, and it's funny. I was talking to my girls last night. Their dad's out on the West Coast. Bo is my soul, but their dad, Hunter, is my heart. And we were talking, and they said, "Who's going with you tomorrow night, Pop?" And I said, "Well, everybody is certain places." They said, "Oh, Pop, we're coming with you. We're coming with you." They, folks, as I look at it, the Oxi Day Foundation is about making clear to all of us that men and women of honor choose the right course even when it's the harder course. It's a Greek trait that just doesn't go back to World War II. It goes back centuries. Heroes, and I am not one of them, never choose ease or expediency over a fight they know has to be waged. When evil knocked on the door at 3 a.m., the reply was Oxi. My mom used to say, and Paul knew my mom, and she loved Paul for real. You knew that, Paul. She used to say to all my siblings and me, and she wanted to make a point, she said, "Look at me, look at me." You knew you better damn well look when she said that. Say, Joey, remember, you're defined by your courage and you're redeemed by your loyalty. My mother meant it. She thought the greatest character trait of all, the greatest virtue, was courage. We used to say, without courage, you cannot love with abandon. It means you love what you love with abandon. It seems to me that although I was raised in an Irish tradition, Jim, that there really are, it's not hyperbole, the traits of the Greek community that helped raise me. I really mean it. I've never found a group of people more loyal, more courageous, not just in the annals of history, but in my personal relationships. It's not just the Greek people or Greek Americans, it's great nations, great people, great individuals the world over. They share a conviction that we try to instill in our children, that it's better to die than live without honor. When you think about it, it's a hell of a thing to say to your child. It's literally better to die and give up your life than to live without honor. You raise your children, we raise our children to admire that kind of bravery and that kind of courage. We raise them to be the Davids who battle our modern-day Goliaths. We teach them to try to be like Nadia. Think about what we tell our children. It's so instinctive on our part, I'm not even sure we focus on. What values we instill in them. Think of others who spend as much time talking to their children about honesty, honor, decency, bravery. Mom used to say, bravery resides in every heart, and someday it will be summoned. You were raised knowing that. You were raised knowing that if it was summoned, your parents, your grandparents expected you. The expectation was you would be brave. I told Nadia when we met earlier that I literally am humbled to be standing alongside of her, receiving this award, and how many tens of thousands of women and girls you've given life to, Nadia. They learn what you went through. And instead of responding to the brutality you endured, the loss of your blood, the blood of your blood, bone of your bone, your brothers, having every reason to withdraw from the world, you summoned the courage to stand up and say, no, no. I am not yielding. I will not let them prevail over me. I will not yield. So many people, hearts would have been so hardened. But those barbarians, and that's who they are, barbarians, prostituting one of the great confessional faiths, they didn't break her. Most incredibly, they didn't destroy her humanity. She's living to defy her tormentors. I know it's not a role you asked to play, honey. And I'm old enough to, as your great grandfather, to call you honey. But on behalf of my granddaughters, on behalf of my daughter, on behalf of all the women in my life and all the women in this country who endured hardship, thank you for giving them courage. Thank you for not... Thank you for teaching them not to blame themselves. Thank you for the dignity of these Yazidi people, for demanding justice for those still trapped and suffering ISIL's depravities. As my grandfather would say, with the grace of God and the goodwill of the neighbors, we'll have some very good news about defeating, and I mean defeating, eliminating the caliphate in Syria, in Mosul, and in Raqqa, God willing. It's not a surprise that others, including the European Parliament, as was pointed out, honored you as well. Your bravery is incomparable. And I have to tell you, as beautiful as the video was hard to watch. I wish I had the strength of Nadia. My granddaughters and I, who are here tonight, my family, who I'm sure will see this, are moved beyond words for this recognition of my bow. I can say on the health of my children and grandchildren, Bo and my son Hunter are the most honorable, finest men I've ever known in my life. I used to kid when they were growing up, Bo was my soul. Hunter was my heart. Bo lived his entire life by the principle that my father and grandfather taught. They taught that the greatest sin a man or woman could commit was the abuse of power. The abuse of power. Economic power, psychological power, political power. My dad would add the cardinal sin of all was for a man to abuse a woman or a child. From Bo's time as a young prosecutor, taking on the tough cases, to his service as a legal advisor in Kosovo. And Jim, my family and I recently visited Pristina where the Kosovo government did a unique thing. They named the newest, most modern highway leading from Camp Bondsteel, connecting two major cities, the Joseph R. Bo Biden Memorial Highway. And they erected a 10-foot monument, granite monument. It was 4 feet thick, with their personal thanks and gratitude to Bo. It may have happened before, but I don't know where. A 1,000 people, the Prime Minister, President, the Foreign Minister, all showed up for the dedication. And what amazed me the most was they all personally knew him. He was there in the middle of the war. And they all quoted something that Bo said to them. That's why Bo decided to enlist at age 32 in the National Guard as a sitting Attorney General of the state. He insisted, as those of you in the military know, when you move from being state property to federal property, you cannot have any relationship with any state job. So he had to give up the Attorney General's seat temporarily, turned it over to typical Bo, the last Republican Attorney General, because he thought it was the right thing to do while he served and had to get an exception from the Defense Department to be able to do it. He came back a decorated war hero, receiving the Bronze Star and 2 other distinguished medals. But it's the reason why he fought so tirelessly to protect women and children from abuse. The model he set up in Delaware is being copied by other attorneys general across the nation. Bo's life was defined by the great qualities of the great people, qualities we celebrate in Oxi Day: courage, fortitude. It was the thing everybody loved about Bo the most, and I know I did. It was always hope. As long as you're alive, you have the obligation to strive. You're not dead until you've seen the face of God. Even though through the cancer, the type of cancer he had, we all knew it was the death sentence when it was given. Nobody survives the particular cancer he had. The treatments, the pain, he never ever gave up. He made every moment count. His courage never gave out. He was full of hope to the end. We were with him at the end. I walked out to my granddaughters in the hallway. I think it was you, Finnegan, said in urgency with your other siblings, "Well, WWBD." I said, "What's that mean, baby?" He said, "We're just talking, Pop. We're just talking." I said, "What does it mean?" He said, "What would Bo do?" So, folks, I think, and I will not take the time, the poem Invictus to find my son. No matter how straight the gate, it ended by saying, "I'm the master of my fate, the captain of my soul." That's what you teach your children. It's stamped into your DNA. To be the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. Aristotle once asked, "What is a friend?" And he answers his own question. He said, "A single soul living in 2 bodies." strange as it sounds for me to say, that pretty well sums up my relationship with this community over the last 40 years. Your loyalty, your friendship when things were lousy, as well as when things were good, have been a continual source of strength to me. You stood up with me. You've defended me. You've been alongside me since my earliest days in the Senate. You've stood with my Bo and with my entire family. So many of you in this room are lifelong friends. None more dear to my family than Paul Sarbanes. But Dennis and Nick and Father Alex, whenever I see Father Alex coming, I just say, yes, Father, yes, yes. He's got me blessing myself backwards again. And Jim, you become a treasured friend. It's no exaggeration to say that the Greek community has helped shape my political consciousness, as well as shape this country and the world. I told Andy this before, but one of my treasures is a press release he put out when I was elected vice president. I have it framed in my home. It said, "We haven't had a Greek in the White House, but now we have Joe Bidenopoulos." I have it hanging in my head. Your Eminence, I'll never forget that you took me for my first time to the home of the Greek Orthodox Church in Turkey, Fener. It was an honor to visit again in 2014. Those visits and the time I've been able to spend talking and building a relationship with His All Holiness, presumptuous of me to say building a relationship, but I hope that I have built a relationship. These are among the two most Christ-like men I've ever met in my life. It's not hyperbole. If you met His All Holiness, you know what I mean. One of the highlights of my career. And my affinity for the Greek community runs deep because it's grounded in the same values I was raised in, the same unwillingness to bend, the unwillingness to accept abuse of power, the unwillingness to bow. We share a commitment to family and understanding that ultimately it is the faith that sustains us and sees us through difficult times. Since we lost my Bo, my faith has given me refuge, reassurance. Again, my mom, Joey, God sends no cross you cannot bear. As a family, that's why we decided the best way to deal with Bo's loss is to move forward, giving meaning to all that Bo lived for and stood for. When Bo passed, Vicki Kennedy, and the Manitoses know how close I was to Teddy, and Paul knows, she sent me a letter, and she said, "Joe, every time Teddy got really down, he'd go to the chest of drawers and pull out a letter that was written by his dad in 1958, a decade after Teddy lost his older brother, Joe. His father was writing to console a friend who had just lost his son. She said, maybe it will help. She enclosed the paragraph in the letter, and it said this. Ambassador Kennedy wrote this. When one of your loved ones goes out of your life, you think he might have done what he might have done with just a few more years. And you wonder what you're going to do with the rest of yours. He went on to say, then one day, because there's a world to be lived in, you find you're part of it, trying to accomplish something he did not have time enough to do. And perhaps it's the reason for all of it. At least I hope so. So for me, for my children, grandchildren, my wife, the Cancer Moonshot Initiative is honoring Bo. But it's not just about him or any single person. It's about giving hope, giving time. Every one of you, every individual in here, I suspect, knows and has been touched by cancer. When one receives that diagnosis of cancer, it's the most frightening word people hear. And what this moonshot is all about, and I'll end, is getting the community to cooperate and share more. Because even without a single additional discovery, we could do a great deal more if the culture was changed. Those of you who are docs, maybe some oncologists in here, how many times have you heard, Doc, give me just 2 more weeks because I want to walk her down the aisle, Doc. Doc, just give me 3 months. I want to see him graduate. Doc, she's my only daughter. She's about to give birth. Can you just let me hang on? For those among the 16 million people diagnosed with cancer this year, it's about every single moment. So many aren't praying to be cured. They're praying, Doc, just give me a little more time. The heart of the Moonshot mission is to double the rate of progress, inject urgency into the fight, and change the culture in order to win it. At its heart, we're channeling that great Greek spirit to say ohi, to say no to hopelessness. It's not going to be easy, but I know we can do it. And I know my son believes we can do it. So this is a fight that Jill, me, Hunter, Ashley, my family will be involved in the rest of our lives. Let me conclude with this. Tonight we honor David-like courage of real heroes. I think it's important to remember David was not a warrior. He was a shepherd. Like those brave women and men of Greece who fought so valiantly in World War II, like Nadia, like my Bo. David didn't spend his life preparing for a fight. He simply stepped forward when no one else would. To have the courage of a David is to hear that phrase from the book of Isaiah. Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Without hesitation, Nadia, my Bo, so many of you said, here I am, Lord. Send me. So tonight, it's a powerful reminder of what makes a man or woman honorable and courageous. As simple as saying, send me, Lord. Send me. Send me to serve. That's what our Bo lived for. That's the legacy that I'm going to continue to work for with all the strength and energy in me. So thank you. Thank you for your continued friendship and for this deserved award for me, undeserved award for me, but deserved for Nadia and my Bo. And I promise you, Nadia, as long as I have a breath in me, I'll strive. I'll strive, honey, to make sure that we continue to fight, to protect, women and girls from abuse that no one should ever suffer. I don't know you, but I love you. Thank you, folks.